Good evening and welcome to the Ann Arbor District Library. My name is Steve and this is session number 3 of the A2ZERO 2025 Sustainability Series, where we're going to be talking about circular economy programs. Just as a couple quick housekeeping notes, if you are in need of a hearing assisted device, if you go out through this set of double doors, there are 2 of them sitting on the table there. If you're looking for a restroom, if you exit this space and then turn right, they're in a small alcove down the way. And without further ado, I present Jordan and his colleagues talking about circular economy programs.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank all of you for coming out tonight. Again, this is the 3rd session of our 2025 Sustainability Forum series. We're super excited to have you. My name is Jordan Larson. I'm an engagement innovator with Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations. And this series brings local experts and change makers together to share their inspiring stories around their work around sustainability, and to help community members learn how they can make changes and take action in their own lives. We're very excited to have a really amazing panel with us tonight, which I will introduce in just a couple minutes. But the theme for this evening is a circular city, building physical and social infrastructure through A2ZERO's circular economy programs. Again, circular economy is something that our office has really been focusing and building some staff and capacity on over the last year and a half. So I'm really excited to bring some new stories and some new programs to our community here that maybe you haven't heard of before. But before we jump in to tonight's content, I'm just going to do a little bit of wayfinding to the series itself. We're here in the middle of the series for this March session. These events are the last Thursday of each month, January through May, and I really hope you might consider coming out to either of the final 2 sessions that we'll have. On April 24th, we'll be doing a session on the Sustaining Ann Arbor Together grant program, a city grant from or up to $10,000, and we'll be sharing some really inspiring stories of groups that have done some really impactful work in the community with these grants, and you might be interested in applying for one yourself. And then the final session that we'll be doing is on May 29th, where we'll be talking about Ann Arbor's sustainable energy utility, what it is, what it isn't, and updates on kind of what's coming up next. So that's definitely going to be one that you're not going to want to miss. So now to just do a really quick overview of what the agenda for this evening is going to look like. Before we dive into the content, I'm going to invite another city colleague to come up to just do a little promotion for a really exciting new city engagement portal that's coming up. And then I'll do a little framing and background to provide some context for tonight's session before bringing each of the panelists up to do their presentation. That will take us toward the end of the evening, where we'll then have roughly 15 to 20 minutes for an audience Q&A, where we'll close out with some information about how to stay engaged, and then we'll also have a little closeout survey. It only takes like 90 seconds, so we really hope that you'll take some time to fill it out. But that will come up at the end of the session. But with that, I am going to quickly hand it over to Michelle to tell us a little bit about Engage Ann Arbor.
Thank you, Jordan. Good evening, all. My name is Michelle. I used to be a community engagement specialist at the city. I'm now in the planning department, but I was a part of this effort to launch this engagement hub that we're calling Engage Ann Arbor. When I was in that role, what we would often hear from the public is that it's very difficult on your website to find information on all of the projects that are going on and to give our input. So we worked with a vendor to centralize all of our projects into one hub and then provide additional features that make it a little bit easier to use. For example, you can filter projects by topic area. So say you're only interested in what's going on with Parks and Rec or with transportation or with planning. Then you can filter by topic. You can also filter by different areas of the city. So if you're only interested in what's taking place in your ward or in your neighborhood, you can filter that way. And also if you know the name of a project, you can there's a search bar for you to search what you're looking for. It also has a follow feature, so you can go to the project page, click follow, you'll receive updates as they are posted. And there are a lot of interactive tools there, so we're not just sharing information. For many of our projects, we are also asking for your feedback. So there might be an area where you can leave comments, or there might be a survey, or there might be a fun game there for you to play that would solicit some of your feedback. Our projects are organized by open, meaning we're taking engagement. This right here shows active, which is we've already done engagement, but we're still keeping you up to date on what's going, and then our closed projects. So this is our QR code and URL right there. And if you want to, in the very back table in that back corner, I have like postcards with the same information on it, so you can take it with you as you go and continue to engage with the city. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. This is a portal that we're actually really excited about. I think it's an opportunity for our office and our group working on sustainability to really think about how we can push more of our projects out to the community this way. And I think there's some really cool features coming that will incorporate community feedback. So would definitely encourage you to check it out. And it may be a way to stay on top of some of the projects that we have going on in the future. So again, thank you to Michelle. And again, there's some literature in the back and some QR codes if you want to check out the site sometime soon. All right, now let's actually dive into the topic this evening. So to provide a little bit of context and background, A2ZERO was adopted in 2020. And A2ZERO is the city's plan to achieve a just transition to carbon neutrality by 2030. Now, this might be something that you've heard a few times, but it really is the backbone behind a lot of the work, or all of the work that we do in the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. So we want to make sure that there's that understanding of we can always kind of point back toward A2ZERO when we're talking about the work we're doing. Within the plan, there are 7 strategies, and tonight we're specifically going to come back to the strategy number 5, which is changing the way we use, reuse, and dispose of materials. And now, this is actually a theme that we're continuing from last month's forum, as last month we talked a little bit about the connections between this idea of circularity and food systems. Now, in today's session, we're going to be kind of following that thread, but expanding to think about how our relationship works with all kinds of materials. We can think about the materials that are built into the takeout containers that we get our food from. We can think about the clothes that we wear. We can think about the extreme pervasiveness of plastics in our community, or the food scraps we create. These are all materials that we might have a chance to learn a little bit more about tonight. And with that, it's now my pleasure to introduce our fantastic panelists that are really going to be the folks that are taking us on this journey. So first up, I would like to introduce a colleague of mine, Genevieve Rattray. Yeah. Always want to make sure I get the last names right. Genevieve is the Circularity Manager within the Office of Sustainability and Innovations, and she is passionate about circular economy practices and policies. Prior to joining OSI, Genevieve focused on reducing the impacts of single-use plastics through coalition building and community collaboration. She designed and directed environmental conservation programs for the Belle Isle Conservancy, the nonprofit organization supporting Detroit's 982-acre island park on the Detroit River, which I hope all of you have had a chance to visit, because it's super beautiful. Genevieve got her master's of social work with a macro concentration in innovation and community policy and leadership with her Bachelor of Fine Art. Outside of work, she enjoys working in her flower garden and hosting gatherings at home and in her community. Thank you so much for being here, Genevieve. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce Claire DeBlanc. As a sustainability coordinator, Claire's work focuses on advancing initiatives and programs centered around building equitable, sustainable, and resilient circular economy in Ann Arbor. She is passionate about making sustainable practices accessible to everyone so everyone can be involved. Claire is a graduate of Michigan University, or of Central Michigan University, where she studied environmental science, political science, and environmental studies. She also worked in the university's sustainability office. In her free time, she enjoys camping, sailing, mountain biking, and playing the flute. Thank you, Claire, for coming out. Next up, I would like to introduce Hannah Tizides. Hannah is an artist, environmental advocate, and founder of the Cleanup Club, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting our communities and Great Lakes from plastic pollution. Passionate about the intersection of creativity and sustainability, Hannah aims to bring awareness to the important topics of plastic pollution and climate change while sharing the inspiring notion that we can all make an impact by doing what we can from where we are with what we have to make the earth a less trashy place. Thank you, Hannah, for coming out tonight. And last but certainly not least, I would love to introduce Sarah Mason. Sarah is the Resources Recovery Manager for the City of Ann Arbor. She is responsible for the oversight and management of the city's recycling, compost, and trash programs, including contract administration, grants management, outreach and education, as well as strategic initiatives such as the Move Out Ann Arbor Coalition and the More Life, Less Stuff campaign. Sarah has spent her career working in local government, previously working for the city of Houston in Texas, and is passionate about making her local place a better place through waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and sustainable materials management. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us tonight. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to bring up our speakers, who are really the folks that you want to hear from tonight, not me. So it's my pleasure to bring up Genevieve to tell us a little bit more about what the circular economy is and some of OSI's upcoming programs.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. So we're going to talk about a circular city. Our presentation overview, we're going to talk a bit about just the concept of circular economy, and then I'm going to pass it over to Claire, who's going to go over some of our programming that we have. It's not everything, and afterwards, if we didn't touch on something you wanted to hear about, just grab one of us. We'd love to talk more about it. And then we'll talk about how you can get involved and learn more, and we might get some feedback if we have time. So defining circular economy. So on your right is the circular economy, the circle. But on your left is the linear economy, which is where we're at. So really, the linear economy, think of it as a straight line. It is a take, make, waste concept that we're living in. So we're really extracting materials from the earth to make products that we're using, and sometimes we are only using them one time, known as single use, and then we're throwing them away. Only there is no away. Away is in a landfill where it's emitting carbon, where it has carbon emissions, or it's in littering our neighborhoods, or it's in our oceans, or our lakes, our Great Lakes, or our local waterways producing microplastics that are impacting our aquatic life and human health. So really, that's the linear economy that we're in, and we're looking at how in Ann Arbor and around the country can we take that straight line and turn it into a circle to be more of a circular economy. So with the circular economy, it's a system where materials never become waste to begin with. The products are kept in circulation through various R's, which we'll go over. You're probably used to the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, but I'm going to introduce 7 more. And then really just tackling climate change and other goals, biodiversity loss, through the way in which we are producing and using and disposing of materials. So the traditional principles that we all learned about in grade school are the 3 R's, the reduce, reuse, recycle. But that really only captures a component of the circular economy. I think about it in 3 sections. So you have upstream, which is the design phase, and that's really how are materials being designed to last in a circular economy. So for example, our phones, are they being designed to last? If they break, are they being designed to be able to be repaired? And then at the end of its life, is it being designed that it can be taken apart and properly recycled into another form of use that would be a lower value but still not ending up in a landfill? Then we have the middle section, which is the use phase, which is like where as a consumer we kind of come in, and the idea is that we're using the materials that were created at their highest and longest value. So the energy that was put into making it is the most circular if you're using it as it was intended. So for example, my clothing. I have my clothing, I'm using it as long as I possibly can. If it breaks, rather than dispose of it, I'm mending it, continuing to use it in the purpose that it was meant to be used in. At the very end of its life cycle, when it can no longer be reused and refurbished or donated or given to someone else to use, then we're looking at how can we properly dispose of it to where it can be made into something new. For example, my shoes I'm wearing were made of recycled plastic. Just an example of how to take the materials and reuse them. So within the use phase, we have reuse, repurpose, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, and those are all ways to keep
the products that we have at their highest and longest value. And then at the end, the after-use phase, which also encompasses some of those 3 R's that we all learned about as the basic ones, is recycling and regenerating. So really, it is taking the materials that can no longer be used as purpose and doing a bit of a harm reduction where we're recycling or we are composting. But the idea is we don't go to that first and foremost once we no longer want something, but it's something that we're doing when you no longer absolutely cannot repair it, you cannot continue to use it as is, and then you're avoiding it going to a landfill. So that's when we start recycling our materials or we are composting our materials. So really, it's not just about, circular economy is not just about what we're doing with materials after we're using them, but it's also how do we design out waste? So upstream, how are we designing it in the products? And I know some universities, College for Creative Studies, for example, is a private design university in Detroit, and they have programs that are literally designing for sustainability. So as a consumer, you can look to these various businesses that we want to buy from. Are they having circular practices in how they are designing their products that we want and supporting that? So how are we designing the waste out of our products, our behaviors, and our daily lives? So some examples of circular economy in just our everyday life: repairing instead of replacing, participating in a shared economy, choosing reusable alternatives. When you buy, look at purchasing secondhand before purchasing something made of virgin materials, reducing food waste. Composting is fabulous, but also reducing the food waste so you're composting less is even better. And then supporting businesses with circular practices. And I'm going to hand it over to Claire to talk about some of our programming that encompasses and embodies the circular economy.
Thank you. All right, hello everyone. So I'm going to talk about one of the ways that in Ann Arbor we're pushing towards a more circular economy, and that's neighborhood swap days. So before I start talking about neighborhood swap days, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we have these. So we do have a problem, and that problem is overconsumption. So just to lay a little bit of groundwork is we have the fashion industry, which is about 10% of all of the carbon emissions globally, which is bad. We have an issue with climate change and too many carbon emissions, and the clothing industry is not helping in the textile industry altogether. And then we also have the issue of what do we do with the clothes after we're done with them. And right now this is very relevant because we have fast fashion, which is where trends are changing all the time. So we're buying new stuff and then getting rid of it. And we might think if I buy a new thing and then I donate it, that's okay. But actually, a lot of the clothes that are being donated are just too many clothes. And so then what does Goodwill do? They maybe have to throw some of it away because it's just too much. So the solution is really going to be on both the front end and the back end of reusing and also buying less. So again, the problem can be even more local, and it can be affecting us in more ways. So 70% of the pollution in the Great Lakes is fibers from clothing and textiles. So a lot of clothes are made out of actually plastic, which is made out of fossil fuels, so like oil. That is bad in so many different ways, but one of the ways is that when we're washing our clothes, that plastic that's being taken off, little pieces come off of it, and it's going straight into our waterways. So not a great thing at all, and the more clothes we have in that system, the worse this problem's going to be. So just something to consider, and we have a solution here in Ann Arbor that we're using. This is not the solution, this is a solution, and it's neighborhood swap days. So this is a way for people to come together and share items. So you can bring items and donate them, and then you can also take items for free. So it's a great way to build community, but also to get high quality items without having to pay a whole lot of money. And also just making sure that we're keeping things in circulation right there in your neighborhood and not having to ship it all over the place and things like that. So in 2024, the city launched this program and started it other people have done swaps, but on a city level, we've done 3 in 2024. And we had over 11,000 items donated and over 950 people attending these 3 swaps. So as you can see, 11,000 items kept in circulation over 3 events. We can make a big difference really fast. And it's really important to remember that it's not too hard. You just come to an event, you get stuff for free. Everyone loves getting stuff for free. So it's all good. So this is one of our programs. And we have some hopes for how we want to go about this moving on, because we obviously have the swaps, but we want to have more swaps because people are still buying stuff, and we want the circular economy to be really competitive with other types of buying. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to go to like this whatever store and buy something new, maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm actually knowing that there's a swap this week, so I'm going to go to the swap instead. So we're trying to have them monthly in the coming year, and then also pop-up swaps at larger events, and also supporting communities who want to host their own swaps. And that's very important because as the city, we can only do so much, and then if we're working together as the entire community, we can do a lot more. So that's some of our visions. We've got more visions, but that's some of them. And upcoming swaps that we have, the first is A2ZERO Week is a celebration of the anniversary of the A2ZERO carbon neutrality plan for the city. And every year there's ward parties at each of the 5 wards in Ann Arbor. And so we're planning to bring some of the circular economy activities to these ward parties. So we'll be having 5 swaps, and we don't have the exact day or time yet. But it will be in June, from June 3rd to June 6th, and we'll be having swaps at those. And then we'll also be having a swap at the local food festival on August 28th. And we'll be catering it specifically towards food. So it will be food-related items that people can swap. And we're looking to have more fun swaps like this, where it's kind of a theme and it's bringing people for like a specific reason together. So if we have time at the end, we're going to be asking you for your ideas of where you think swaps should be as we're building our calendar for the coming year. Okay, the second program that I'm going to talk about is our electronics take-back program. So this is another way that we support circular economy here in Ann Arbor. And I'm going to play a video. Oh, geez. Hold on. Okay. How do I do this, Jordan? It's not working now. Okay. Thank you.
It'll just be 60 seconds of it.
It's not 10, yes. And basically, we've got a big problem with both extracting resources to make technology and then disposing and all the stuff in between, so like shipping. And this is just going to give you a brief overview, so you don't have to listen to me talk about that.
They had a place where they'd store it, right under our noses. And they just thought they could get away with it forever. And they could have if it hadn't been for those trackers.
Right now, you're watching this on an electronic device. Do you ever think about where it'll end up when you're done with it? Many devices contain toxic materials and should be recycled very carefully. Sadly, lots end up in landfills. But even if you're diligent and give your electronic waste, or e-waste, to a recycler, that's no guarantee about what happens next. American recyclers often ship it overseas, frequently to countries in Southern Asia. There, workers take apart toxic material by hand, often without proper safety measures. And US policy lets it happen. But, thanks to one small nonprofit, not everyone gets away with it.
That means they're really worried about our
Okay, so that one small nonprofit that you just heard talking about is actually going to be something we're going to talk about after I figure out how to get this back to the other side. You're good at this. I don't know how you do that. Thank you. So the group that you just heard talking created a certification called eSteward certification. So all the problems with like sending electronic material overseas, they came up with a solution and they created this certification. And we partner with Comprenew, that is a company that recycles and refurbishes electronics in a way that's very ethical and very secure with data and everything like that. and they are eSteward certified. So they have an obligation to make sure that they are a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. So we host electronic takebacks events every quarter, and we had one already, and we had over 200 people and more people wanting to come, dropping off their electronics. So it was a very successful event. And then we actually are having another one on April 26th, and it sold out extremely quickly. So we can see that there's obviously demand for this. And we're going to be having another event in June. So that's going to be also happening, so look out for that. So our visions for the next steps is to continue with our current programming, but also to expand on it because we've had so much demand and this is such a big issue that we want to provide the opportunity for people to ethically recycle and get rid of their electronic materials. So we want to have more frequent takebacks and then also expand our capacity to take in items. And also, hopefully one day we'll be able to take in items and refurbish them and then redistribute them to the community. So it's truly circular in that way. That's the dream. Okay, the last program that I'm going to be talking about is a refrigerant management program. And this also ties into the circular economy because it's all about the best and highest use of resources and reducing waste. So just a quick overview. Refrigerants are gases, and usually they're greenhouse gases. So R22 is a very common type of refrigerant. It's actually Freon, and it is very potent for climate change. So it's, if you have carbon dioxide and it's at a 1, Freon is at almost 2,000. So it's almost 2,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And that's the most common refrigerant that grocery stores and places like that use. And also, grocery stores tend to leak 25% of the refrigerants each year. So that is a lot of emissions going out from just one refrigerant problem. When there's actually a solution to this, it doesn't need to be that way. So R22 and other refrigerants like that are synthetic. There's natural refrigerants like carbon dioxide, which is funny that carbon dioxide is actually the better option. And there's also ways that you can prevent leaks. So we have this program that we just got EPA funded for, which is very exciting. We're going to be helping small businesses decrease their carbon emissions and their emissions associated with their refrigerants. Currently, there's programs that help the bigger super centers of food, but there's nothing that helps smaller businesses. So we're trying to have this program so we can help support smaller businesses in being more sustainable in that way, which is very exciting. And I guess the takeaway from this, I think refrigerants are a very invisible type of problem. A lot of people don't know about this. And it's a little bit different with grocery stores and your individual fridge. But it is definitely good to know. Don't go and smash your fridge when you're done with it because it does have these very potent materials in it. So refrigerant management is very important to climate change. Okay, now I'm going to pass it off to Genevieve.
Thank you, Claire. Don't go too far, because we'll have the thing. All right, so returnable containers. Has anyone heard of our A2R3 program and or participated? Oh my gosh, all right, a couple. That's fantastic. Well, about 1.5 years ago, we launched a very small pilot program of returnable containers. So when you're going and getting carry out somewhere, they give you single-use plastic and clamshells and everything that goes with taking food away and taking it back home. And we were looking at how can we phase that out of our city and come up with a system that allows us to not be leaning on single-use plastic at that capacity. So we launched a pilot phase of the program with a handful of amazing participating businesses. So Cinnaholic, El Harissa, Ginger Deli, Zingerman's Next Door. So you can go to any one of these restaurants, and when you order something, you can request the returnable container, and they will give it to you. And it's very much an honor system because it's a pilot phase, and they'll give it to you. You take your stuff home. When you're done with it, you wash it out, you bring it back to the same restaurant or one of the restaurants, and they keep it in circulation. So a very small pilot phase to see how it would go, but the situation is that this is something that to be impactful needs to be at scale. And there's no city in the United States that is doing a returnable containers at scale. And we're looking at how do we vision doing that in Ann Arbor? Is that something that Ann Arborites would support? Is that something that our partner organizations would support? So where we're at on this scale is we've done the pilot phase and the feasibility phase. And we've even come up with our partner organizations who are very excited about it. And we've come up with a vision for it, and we're really looking for funding at this point. But how it works is that we have our anchor organizations, so we are anchor institutions, I should say, so Ann Arbor Public Schools and University of Michigan participating, as well as local businesses. We build a wash center in which we have a vendor, and the vendor sanitizes all of the returnable containers and distributes them to our various organizations, institutions, businesses that are using them. And obviously, if you're at Ann Arbor Public Schools in one of the elementary schools, everything is staying on site. So that's a great anchor institution because there's less chances of the returnable containers staying there and coming back to the facility. So they're at the elementary schools, at the university, at our local businesses. If you are going into a local business and wanting to get carry out, you grab one of these returnable containers, take it home, bring it back, and put it in one of the return bins that will be strategically placed around the city and in different locations. And then it's the vendor that's picking them up and then bringing them back to the wash. So we have a really great vision. We have fantastic partners who are excited about this, and we are currently working on finding the resources to make it happen. And with all of our programming, we have incredible partners from all of our Ann Arbor residents who really participate in it and make them as strong and viable as they are, as well as a bunch of other community partners. And if we have time, we're going to do a survey. Yes? Do we need Jordan's help for that?
Let me try it. This is just some resources if you're interested, but let's see if I'll try it first. I could do it earlier, so I'm not really sure. It's like magic. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know how you do that. So we just have some questions that we want to ask you, and then we might be using some of this information that we get to inform our programs and make sure that we know kind of what everyone's thinking about them. So this first question is, well, I guess first, if you could go to menti.com, so it's menti.com, and then this code in the corner, it is 48832925. And if you need me to read that again, I can read it again. And then just go ahead and answer this question. That's what are some of your favorite ways that you participate in the circular economy? So the idea is we all do participate in some way. So we'd love to see what you all do. Yay, got some stuff coming in. Yeah, this is really cool to see. I think it's really important to remember that while circular economy might not be a word that everyone knows, we all are participating in the circular economy in some way, and the circular economy is by no means new. This stuff has been around for a really long time. Just trying to make sure that we're using the systems that we've used before.
A lot of thrifting in our community. So I think our swaps are going to continue to be a wild success.
Yay, this is awesome. Okay, thank you all for participating. This is beautiful. We have more questions for you. So This next question should be pulled up on your phone automatically, and if it's not, let me know. But this is asking, what are incentives for you to participate in reuse/attend a swap? And this is more of a short answer. And we would love your feedback on this. Okay, cool, it's working. Good, I'm glad to see reliability. That's what we're trying to increase that a little bit going forward. Oh, food, that's a good idea. Cats, that's interesting. I do like cats too, that's fun. Clothes have already been washed. Awesome, okay, yeah. Know when they are. That's a big one that I'm seeing, is knowing when they are, so definitely we'll be working on all these things, and we'll be reading these afterwards just to see what we can do to make it better experience for all of you to come and participate in these. So thank you so much. We have more questions for you.
Just two more.
Just two more, don't worry. So this one's asking what barriers there are. So the previous one was incentives, and this one's asking what barriers there are to reuse and attend a swap. Seeing a lot of timing ones. So hopefully if we have more often swaps, that will help with that. Oh, I see a question here. How are they marketed? So we have lots of marketing, and some of that you can follow A2ZERO 2030 on Instagram and Facebook. They're marketed there. They're also marketed on our newsletter that you can join. I don't know if we have stuff back there in that table. Yeah, you can find all the information back there on how to get the information to you.
But that is something we're looking at for as we continue to grow our SWAP programming, of having it, having a core element of it being kind of the same day, same time. So maybe the last Saturday of the month, that you can always count on that happening. So you always know for the entire year, the last Saturday of the month, you can go to this location for a swap, and then sprinkling in pop-ups at other locations and other, maybe evening events, things like that as well. So we do understand that we're not always getting the word out as clear as we can, and we're looking at ways to embed just the knowledge of it happening into our community, and you can just count on it.
Awesome. Okay, we have one more question. And this is, what location should we host swaps? So this is just any ideas that you have. So we have the local food festival swap. We have the ward party swaps. What else can we be doing, and where else should we be going? Or even what themed swap should we have? Things like that.
And you can put neighborhoods, you can put actual locations you'd like to go, whether it's, the library, or this is my neighborhood, I'd love it really close to me. So just ideas for where we should be thinking about.
And if you have ideas after this, please let us know. We would love to hear your ideas if you think of them later on too.
Also, shout out to the public libraries. It embodies circularity.
Oh, these are some good ideas. Costume theme swap. I love that. Lots of parks. I'm getting excited for the summer when I see that. Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you all so much for listening to our presentation and for participating here at the end. Really appreciate it. And I think we've got another really exciting presentation coming up next. So let me see if I can get out of here. Oh no, okay. Don't let me press that. Oh, good, okay, you got it.
All right, thank you, Genevieve and Claire, so much for that presentation. Again, swaps are really fun. Been to a couple of them, and I think, where you touched on where it's a space that you can create community. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of those types of events. And even if you aren't looking for something in particular, it's a great opportunity to come and meet other residents and neighbors, and maybe you will find something that'll become your favorite sweater or something like that. So again, thank you so much for sharing some of that content about these programs. Up next, I'm super excited to pass it over to Hannah, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how you can use art as inspiration for change, and to tell us a little bit about her organization. Hannah, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm super excited to talk to you, and you're probably wondering why there's trash on the screen here. But just kind of bringing it all back in like full circle a bit, I think creativity and reuse are a super, super important part of the circular system in general and just creating a better future. So this is kind of where my journey began. I have been going to Lake Erie and downstream of the Huron River as a kid. I grew up in Flat Rock, which is where the river dumps into Lake Erie. So there's a lot of trash that ends up there, which we'll get into. But these are some photos I have taken just throughout the years of trash that I've collected on the shorelines of Lake Erie. And as you can see, it's a lot and it's colorful, and it got me kind of thinking just how to maybe bring light to this in a fun way. So this is some of my art that I've made over the years, and it's really just with the hope to bring light to Great Lakes plastic pollution. And I think all of the time we've all heard about ocean plastic pollution, but we don't really hear about what's happening right here at home in our own backyards. And that's what this all is to bring light to. So you can probably identify some items that you've seen in your day-to-day life. There's a bread tag over there, bottle caps, fragments of plastic utensils and things that we see in our everyday lives. And these items are washing up on our shorelines every single day. And a lot of these are these itty-bitty tiny bits, which we'll also get into. But this is really where the journey of trash began for me. So I'll tell you a bit more about that story. This is another piece, again, just making that full circle back to these daily items that we're using every day, and then what happens to them over time. So every year, about 22 million pounds of trash ends up in our Great Lakes. It's kind of hard to picture that, but I think we all know a million's a lot, and 22 million of that is way too much. And that's just every year. So a lot of these fragments are, again, these itty bitty tiny colorful pieces that are just from items that have broken down over time. So kind of zooming back out and looking at the Great Lakes, we can see that Lake Michigan has the biggest amount entering it every year, and then Lake Erie is right behind that, and we sit on that watershed here in Ann Arbor. So zooming in a little more here, you can see that arrow pointing to Ann Arbor, and that is the Huron River that, again, empties right into Lake Erie. And about 90% of all of these water samples in a recent study have shown that microplastic levels are at an unsafe all-time high level right now. And we'll kind of get into why that's happening and what all of these sources are. But again, they're these tiny pieces that really impact us more than we even know. So the primary sources in our Great Lakes watersheds are these few things, which I will chat a little bit more about. Water bottles, that really just goes to show any kind of larger plastic objects. So anything that you can imagine that's plastic that might break down, that's what that is talking about. The t-shirt is a representation of microfibers, which are a type of microplastic, which Claire touched on, coming from our clothing, coming from washing our clothes every day. About 18 million microfibers are estimated for every wash load to enter straight into our waterways. And it's just really crazy to think about how many tiny little fragments that is just from a load of laundry. And then tires are another thing there. And then, has anyone heard of nurdles? Nurdles, I see a thumbs up. Thumbs down, yeah. We'll get into that more, but that is another contributor in our watershed. And then we're also looking at styrofoam. So a lot of the times, takeout containers are made of that styrofoam material that breaks down and is so pesky because it is just everywhere once it breaks down. So nurdles. I love talking about nurdles because I feel like if you are learning about nurdles for the first time, just go tell a friend after this because it's just interesting to talk about. But these are nurdles. As you can tell in the penny, they're really tiny, and those are some different colorful ones. So nurdles are plastic pellets. They're the virgin type of plastic. So anything that's created with plastic started as a nurdle. They're melted down in plastic production facilities and then turned into everyday objects. So we see a ton of that here in Michigan. Does anyone know why? Because of what we're creating in Michigan. The auto industry, exactly. So unfortunately, a lot of the auto industry plants and factories sit along the rivers that all lead into the Great Lakes. So our watershed is again connected, and unfortunately, these are a plastic component that ends up going directly into them, a lot of the times just seeping through facility, drains and grates and then leading right out to the lakes. So the clear ones that you see here are virgin, which is like their very first plastic item, and then the colored ones are actually recycled plastic. So those are shipped around the Great Lakes a lot of the times to different plastic facilities like the car industry and all types of different industries that are using that recycled plastic to make new items, which is great, part of the circular system, but it's a flaw in the system that does need to be looked at. And then microfibers. So these are, like Claire also said, the number one type of microplastic that we're seeing in the Great Lakes, and they're coming from our clothing. So a lot of our clothing that we're wearing today is made of poly blends, so polyplastic, polyester, things like that we've all heard of. When we're washing them, they're then just slowly breaking down and entering straight into our waters. Luckily, there are also solutions. Swaps, of course, are a great one to just keep things moving and grooving. And as you wear things, typically they shed less plastic over time, research shows, which is great. But there also is a lot of innovation happening right now to looking at filters added to washing machines. And you know how in a dryer you pull out the lint? That's what they're looking to do with washing machines, which would be a really great way to at least, reduce that. But again, this is something that we're dealing with in the Great Lakes right now. And of all of, just out of all the watersheds that they've studied right now, in a study recently, they did find that the highest levels of microplastics were in the Huron River. So this is, obviously hits home. Which brings me to the Cleanup Club. So this is my nonprofit, the Cleanup Club, and I'm excited to tell you about it. So this is me with our cute little truck, partially just because I want to show you the truck, and then partially because there's a little circular part here too. So the Cleanup Club was really created to bring light to Great Lakes plastic pollution and plastic pollution in our communities as well, and how that leads to the Great Lakes, and how we can all get involved and have some fun and bring creativity into it. And just a lighter element, because I feel like a lot of these topics can be a little doomy, but I think the clothing swaps and things like that, they make it more fun in a way that we can tangibly get involved. So this is our little truck that I bring to events with us, and it is filled with a bunch of trash, but we are using coffee bean sacks from some of our local coffee shops that donate them. And instead of, those going directly to the landfill like they were, we're giving them another life through having some fun and picking up trash together. So this is just a little look at what we accomplished last year. 25 cleanup events. Those were community-focused events, and then we do a lot of kids education and going into schools and things like that. We had almost 1,000 volunteers and cleaned up a lot of trash. At all of our Great Lakes cleanups, we count and sort everything and categorize it to help with advocacy efforts. So that is that last number there, over 41,000 pieces. So it adds up quick. And most of what we were finding is plastic. This is just a little look too at what we're finding. So like I said, we know that microplastics are a problem. There's a lot of research to back that up, both globally and locally. But a lot of what we're seeing is just those plastic fragments, cigarette butts, things that you would probably imagine being a problem. They're a problem. Food wrappers are huge. So I love that Ann Arbor is, trying something new for packaging and reuse, because that's such a huge problem that we're seeing, both with the food wrappers, the polystyrene cups and clamshells and everything like that. And then, of course, you'll see some of the usual culprits like plastic bags and cutlery. And I think that this just goes to show that if we're continually finding these items at cleanups, then how can we make those daily changes to, do better and make a little impact along the way. So this is another look at just kind of what's happening in the city. I think a lot of the times talking about plastic pollution, we think about ocean pollution or, kind of that like weirdly glamorized side of it of ocean pollution and seeing ocean creatures. But things like this are happening right in our backyard, and it goes right down those drains that we see everywhere and then straight into the watershed. So that's obviously a super huge thing. And of course you can see it's mostly food wrappers and cups and things. So things that we can work at to get out of the system. These pictures always shock me every time I look at them, I feel like, and I look at them all the time, but this is a cleanup event. As you can see, there's a clipboard there. So volunteers are helping collect data, and we just dump the buckets after a cleanup and sort through all of it, collect all of that data and see what we're finding so that we can hopefully advocate for, systems of reuse, effective policies, things of that nature. And then this is a look at what we call a rack line, which is basically where the shoreline keeps, the waves keep coming up over time, and then they leave this, what's called a rack line. And everything just kind of gets stuck in there, especially around the season changes in Michigan. We see there's a lot of fluctuations between them. So after the winter, when the snow melts, we tend to see a lot more of these tiny plastic fragments left behind. And this is a look after they've been taken out of that rack line. You can see a lot of those nurdles that I talked about, a lot of microplastics, just a lot of these items that have broken down, like from bottle caps and things over time. This is just another look at our work. So you can see cleaning up the river on the side over there with paddle boards, just making it more of a fun community event at the beach in Lake Erie. And then in the middle there's more of those plastics being sorted, which then are used in art later. And then I wanted to touch on styrofoam again too, because I feel like I'm just really excited about what Ann Arbor's doing, because if there's no city doing this, getting rid of those takeout containers and things and not prioritizing that, then what is that going to look like in the future? It's crazy how fast you can fill up a bucket with all of those little styrofoam pieces and how fast they fly around in the wind. So if we can eliminate that, that would be such a win. And then it's not just little pieces. I also wanted to highlight in these cleanups, you can see this volunteer here is pulling out a car bumper right from the river. So you really never know what you'll find. And then again, we use that data that we're collecting to advocate for effective policies and things to protect the Great Lakes. So this is a picture of nurdles that I brought with me to a DC day lobbying, and just showing our reps and Senate there the problem that we have here in the Great Lakes, and trying to get the word out about nurdles and things that, could be an easy fix and also save companies money in the long run. So just kind of circling it back to why cleanups, I feel like at the end of the day, never doing a cleanup again would be great. It's definitely a downstream effort right now, and upstream solutions are really what we want. So things like, creating those reuse systems and utilizing them at the city level, and then effective policies are super important. There's a lot of super great innovations going on too with things like mushrooms, seaweed, and figuring out how to scale those. I know companies are working on, so it would be super awesome to see more of that. And then of course we can always just buy less or advocate with your dollar. And then we're doing a cleanup during A2ZERO week, which will be super fun. So if you are looking for plans on Saturday, June 7th, we'll be at Gallup Park doing a cleanup. So it should be a fun day. And yeah, feel free to, there's my email, our website, and our Instagram. And I didn't put it at the end of this, but all of the plastic that we collect at the Great Lakes, those tiny pieces and stuff, I then use in art pieces either myself or with kids and different projects that we're working on. So it's a full circle little loop. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. It's super amazing to see some of those art pieces. They're beautiful. And I think that art plays an important role in advocacy and thinking about the change we can make, and that's something that we can all do a little bit more of, and I feel kind of inspired, so thank you. Also, when we do cleanups, I want some of those pink safety vests. Those are fun. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Mason up to the podium, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about some of the city programs around solid waste and composting and some other exciting initiatives.
Oops. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. My name's Sarah Mason. I'm the Resource Recovery Manager. I work in the Public Works Department for the City of Ann Arbor. I also want to recognize Mallory Lawson from our team, our Compost Program Coordinator. She's in the back, so in case you have any really detailed questions on compost, I may ask her to help out. But this evening, I did just want to take a little bit of time to introduce you. Sorry, the arrow? Okay. There we go, to who we are and what we do. So our solid waste team, we're responsible for all the collection of solid waste within the city, either through direct collection with city trucks and crews or through collection contracts. And our mission is to provide safe and efficient solid waste services, as well as provide opportunities for landfill diversion to residents and businesses in Ann Arbor to protect public health and the environment. So we have a pretty robust crew of drivers and trucks that do, we pick up residential trash, multifamily trash and dumpsters, and recycling and dumpsters. And then we have collection contracts for recycling carts and commercial trash. We work a lot with my colleagues here from the Office of Sustainability and Innovation. We work a lot with the university. We work a lot with Washtenaw County on how we can partner to better recover material and manage our waste. So kind of what guides our work is we do have a solid waste resource management plan that was adopted in 2020. The plan timeline was 2019-2023. It was officially passed in 2020, and there were 24 recommendations in 6 different areas: residential, commercial, education and outreach, downtown specific initiatives, diversion facilities, and funding. And just mention that to say that we have been very busy on working on the recommendations in the plan. We've achieved quite a lot of them, 13. We've got 4 more that are in progress and a few more left for the future. So while our planning period has ended, we are still working on the recommendations in this plan, and then intend in a couple of years to have a refresh. The county is also undergoing a materials management planning process right now, and so it will be nice to see when the county plan is done, and then our new city plan will represent what the county plan is focused on as well. So I also wanted to just point out that, as I mentioned, we work really closely with OSI, and we have the A2ZERO plan, the Climate Action Plan, and we have our Solid Waste Resource Management Plan. And there is quite a lot of things that work together there, especially focused around compost expansion, which I'm going to talk to you about this evening, things around textile recycling, construction and demolition waste, commercial recycling, and education and outreach. So there really is a lot of synergy between our groups, and our programs are very well aligned. So I wanted to just show you some of our goals. This chart will tell you the gray bar is total tons of trash, the blue bar is recycling, and the orange bar is organics. And overall, our goal is to reduce all the waste generated. So you might see some tonnages going down, say for like recycling, but what we want is like overall waste to go down. So reduce as much as possible, and then recycle as much as possible, and compost as much as possible. And one of the things that we're really focusing on is food waste. This information is national. This chart is from the EPA, but the state of Michigan also has a goal to reduce food waste by 2030, and so we are really focusing on what we can do to keep food scraps out of the landfill. When they are landfilled, generate methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. So it's a big opportunity within the waste world to reduce that impact. We would also like to focus on, as we've heard time and time again, composting is fantastic and is a responsible thing to do with inedible food or food that otherwise is not going to be eaten, but ideally we want to reduce how much of that is generated first, and then compost what is left. So ReFed, which is a national nonprofit that works on food waste, looked at, where was the food waste, where did it go? You can see that the majority of it was landfilled. The majority of it comes from residential households, and the majority of it is from excess buying, and then, trimming and byproducts, so pits and peels, things like that from maybe inedible parts of your food. And last year, the EPA put forward a new food waste scale focusing on like a hierarchy of where you should focus first. And preventing food waste is the very first thing we want to do. So I am going to talk to you about a compost expansion program that we are working on to give better access to our multifamily residents. But I also just want to mention that we've been in conversation with OSI quite a lot about how can we work on a food waste reduction campaign, because that's something everybody can do. It benefits you, it's better for your pocketbook, and it's better for the environment. So a lot of food waste is generated because you just forgot that something was in the back of the fridge, or you were going to eat it, or you had great intentions and you just didn't get to it. So there's things that you can do to make sure that you're storing things properly, thinking about your purchases, and making sure that what you buy you eat, and then try to reduce what you generate, knowing that there will be some things that will need to go in the compost. And I do want to point out this quickly, just on this slide, 6.2 million tons of food waste diverted. The emissions related to that would be 8.75 million. So there's another M there, that's a typo on the slide. And jobs created. Again, this is research done by ReFed showing that centralized composting is the best opportunity to divert food waste that's generated. So here we do have a compost program. We've long had yard waste composting. We have food scrap composting. The city owns a compost facility. We do contract the operations of that to We Care Denali, and they utilize a windrow system, which is basically you're putting all of your inbound material into these long rows that get turned occasionally, and then within a 6-month time frame, this material will be filtered out, and you'll get the compost screened. That's the word, I'm sorry. It'll be screened at the end into finished compost, and then into overs. So a quick history on the compost program here in Ann Arbor. There was a yard waste ban implemented in statewide, Michigan, 1989, saying that you cannot put yard waste in the landfill unless it's diseased or otherwise contaminated. And so that started off our yard waste program. We started doing compost carts in 2008 and doing vegetative food scrap in 2009. So veg and fruit, produce things. In 2014, we expanded that to plate scraping. So that's anything from your plate. That's cooked food, that's meat, that's dairy. All of that can be composted in our program. It's co-collected in the cart with yard waste. That's collected weekly from about April to December. And then in 2022, we were able to add winter collections, which are once a month for the months of January, February, March, usually the first week of the month. I will mention that regular weekly compost is starting back on April 7th. And we also do have, Ann Arbor residents are eligible to get up to a cubic yard of free compost on Saturdays starting April 12th. So that's April 12th through June 28th, every Saturday morning from 7 to 11. So I encourage you to take advantage of that if you never have, because we usually have stuff left over. I want to mention that at present, our composting program has really been focused on single-family homes, and we recognize that about half of our residents live in multifamily housing and don't have direct access. They may not have an individually assigned compost cart. So we are looking at how we can expand that, which is a direct recommendation of the Solid Waste Resource Management Plan and the A2ZERO plan. So what we're looking to do is to provide more convenient access to food scrap collection, and the opportunity there is to capture the food waste, which is the most common material in U.S. landfills, and divert it to composting instead. And the way we are looking to do this is to establish a network of drop-off sites. So consolidated collection is something that we're seeing in more communities as a way to expand that access and also keep your collection operation more efficient, because when you go to a container, it will be more full. So we've got a couple of examples here. Starting at the far left, that's in Washington, D.C. They just launched their program. The middle bin is in New York City, and the far bin is in Boston. So this is something that we're seeing. We just showed a few example communities, but it's becoming a more common way to do collection. And I do want to also point out that we're getting this project launched now. We're starting to gather engagement and information, so it's a good tie-in. You heard Michelle tell you earlier about the A2 Engage Hub. So our project page is not yet live, but it will be coming soon, and there will be information there on how to provide input in public meetings that we'll be holding. So do check out engage.a2gov.org and look out for this project so you'll know how to get involved and give us your feedback. Another of our programs that I wanted to mention tonight was our More Life, Less Stuff campaign, which is a social-based marketing campaign that's also was a direct recommendation from our plan. And this campaign was launched in order to foster and promote basically a community value of reducing waste. So the start of this project, the Ecology Center is our partner on this. They're our educational contractor. And we did a year-long of engagement and talking with folks, a diverse group of stakeholders. And what we heard time and time again was that the Ann Arbor community really wants to see reducing waste as a shared community value. And they want to have an ongoing conversation about how to do it while also enriching your lives, strengthening connections, and doing that without just acquiring more stuff. So basically, maybe buy less, get outside more, see your friends more, whatever you might do that brings you enrichment outside of generating things. And so we launched Earth Day 2024. We do have a website. I really encourage you, if you haven't seen it, if you've not checked it out, a2morelife.com. There's a lot of really great information, a lot of really compelling stories. We started by talking about food waste and composting, but we also did do, for Plastic Free July, we did a story on microplastics in the Huron River. That's really important. We have stories on seed swapping, digital decluttering, which is one of the latest stories we've put out, which is really interesting thought about the use of technology in your life and holding on to like digital clutter. We have things about the swap days and more. And we've promoted the campaign. You may have seen them. We had bus wraps on the back of the ride buses. We had stuff on the radio, TV commercials on streaming services, and in MLive. So it's really interesting, and there's ways for you to also provide your story ideas as well. So I encourage you, if you have not ever checked out A2 More Life to go check it out. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was we're a university town, and we have a large portion of off-campus students live within the city of Ann Arbor. They move a couple times a year and generate a tremendous amount of extra trash in the times that they leave. So we see, when we look at that chart that I showed you with our total tons, if you look at that on a monthly basis year over year, you're going to see a nice peak in May and a nice peak in August related to those turnover activities. And there's a lot of great work already happening. There were a lot of groups, the university does a lot on campus. There were some groups already working in the community off campus to try and recover material. The city hosts a drop-off site where we recover material for reuse and take things for trash, but we just felt like there was more that we could be doing. So we spent some time researching just a few other university towns and universities to see what they're doing and see what makes their programs work and how they handle this. This isn't something that's necessarily unique to Ann Arbor. And what we learned is that it's a very large issue and you need a lot of partners to come together if you want to make a big impact on it. There's a vast network of people who could be involved, people who do storage, people who do moving, people who take items for reuse, people who take items for donation, people who do redistribution. And that can be for textiles, food, household goods, mattresses, cleaning products, hygiene products. There's just sort of a really numerous amount of items as well. And that outreach is essential. It has to be comprehensive, it has to be institutionalized, and it has to happen regularly, a steady drumbeat. You can't wait until it's that time to start talking about what you're going to do. Like, we want to just sort of keep it in the front of the mind of people who might be moving, what opportunities they have to do something with their stuff other than put it in the trash. So, based on all of that, the city convened something that we're calling Move Out Ann Arbor, or MOA. We thought we might change the name. It is sort of sticking at this point. So we're just going to go with it. So what is MOA? It's a coalition of organizations and partners in Ann Arbor working collaboratively to improve the recovery and reuse of unwanted materials to the benefit of our community during student move-in and move-out. And we, like I mentioned, we're building upon programs and services that were already available, but to make Ann Arbor a best-in-class campus community for environmentally and economically sustainable practices. I think this fits right in line with everything we've heard about wanting to move to a more circular economy, because in our conversations, we're not just the communication that we're doing is not just about what do I do with this thing when I'm done with it. We're also, when students are incoming, we're promoting, check out one of the many resale shops, one of the many thrift stores. Maybe you can buy what you need there, and we're really trying to kind of close that loop. So we've had a lot of partners involved with this. The University of Michigan has had many different student organizations and other parts of university involved. I see Nora Bundy here. Nora's been working with us, yay. And some students are working on some projects to help support MOA. And in 2024, we started meeting in January, and we focused on more consolidated and collaborated communication. We also focused on targeting clothes. Heard a lot about clothes today. There's tremendous amount of clothes for the on-campus collections that UM does. They get maybe 11 tons of stuff, and about half of it is clothes. And we heard from a lot of our partners that were already picking up household goods. They're saying, hey, House and Home was doing great work going to sororities. They take household goods. They help people transitioning from homelessness into a furnished house. They don't take clothes. And they said, oh my gosh, you see the clothes. I go pick up the household, and there's all these clothes left. So we organized some volunteers to go pick up those clothes last year. And we did it for 11 sororities and 9 high-rise apartments that were doing household goods. We collected 112 bags of clothing, about 2 tons, and delivered them to Kiwanis for reuse. And we're looking to do more of that again this year. So what we're trying to do is foster that network and bring partners together. This year we're going to have 3 new donation events. So this is a new model where we have a local church that's willing to host. We've got St. Andrew's and Lord of Light hosting events. We have nonprofit organizations partnering with us, House into Home, Habitat, Kiwanis, and we're getting volunteers from other groups as well, the Rotary Club and others that are going to come. We're going to have these donation events, and this is for stuff in good condition, and they're located hopefully right in the thick of where a lot of people who are going to be moving are living, so they can easily walk stuff over, and we're looking forward to doing that. We're going to continue to do the clothing collection, and we're still working on that communication piece. We're adding a calendar and a map to try and make everything that's going on a little easier to find, so that you can find the thing that's most convenient for you and make sure that you can get your stuff there. So A2gov.org/studentmove is the city's website for our MOA efforts. We may be looking to have an independent website in the future, but right now that's where all the information can be found. So encourage you to check that out. And that's the end of my remarks. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I don't know if anyone else in the room has had the experience where you go visit a family or friend in a different city and you forget that not everyone has municipal composting. And I think that, we can often take for granted some of what the city's services are. And so I think it's really great to get a deeper dive and understanding of really what goes on behind the scenes. And it's a lot of great work. So thank you for telling us about it. All right, we've got a few minutes left in our session, and at this point, we would like to open up some Q&A time. If you have a question that you're interested in asking one of our panelists, please raise your hand, and then a mic will be brought to you so that we can get your voice in the recording. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists tonight?
Is Scioto Township considered as part of Ann Arbor? Do they do the composting for Scioto Township as well?
You can talk into that speaker.
No, so our city services are just for City of Ann Arbor. So Scioto Township has separate waste collection, yes.
This is actually a question, shout out to folks watching online, that a friend of mine texted me. So this is a question from someone watching online. When we give our compost, or when the compost is managed by We Are Care and Denali at Ann Arbor's facility, how much compost is there generated at the end of every year from that facility? And what happens to the stuff that's not taken by residents? Like, who gets the profit, I guess, from that compost being made, and how are we recircularizing it?
That's a good question. I don't know actually at the top of my head how the quantity of compost that's made. The city's contract with We Care, they also do sell the product, so they have third-party tons coming in there as well. It's not just material collected by the city, and so there's a certain amount, 1,000 cubic yards, made available for the free compost giveaway for residents, but the rest of that is sold by them. The city does receive a revenue credit for every yard that's sold.
In the same composting vein, so residents that get to pick it up, do you have to be a City of Ann Arbor resident, or have Ann Arbor, like if I'm Ann Arbor Township?
That's a good question, and yes, it is City of Ann Arbor. So there's a process that it's outlined on our website, just for anyone who might be interested. You would need to bring your driver's license, and we have an ability at our scale that you can scan your license and it will determine residency, and then, scan you in.
Any other questions? We have some time.
For the reuse containers, is there a way that you could get like farms involved, or like how complicated would it be to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we are able to secure funding to be able to bring everyone in to design it, it would be co-designed with our community. So absolutely, farms would be welcome to participate in it 100%.
Yeah, I think we had another question over here.
Mine actually isn't a question, it's more of a comment. I'm very happy to see that you're looking at recycling refrigerants, because refrigerants are actually a big problem in many ways. So I work in that area, and one of the challenges we find is that we have counterfeit refrigerants that are out there in the market. We have leakage out there. And counterfeit is driven by pricing. Your air conditioning goes off and somebody comes in and says, hey, it's gonna cost you $2,000 or $1,000. Pockets are very tight, take $1,000, counterfeit. And then when you come in to repurpose them, you find they're already mixed up. So it's very hard to use that. So one of the things that we're working on is a team that we got some money from NSF. We're looking at, one, developing sensors to detect leak. And secondly, developing new types of refrigerants that are less toxic. And then thirdly, that are less actually flammable. Flammability is a big thing. So for example, the typical refrigerant you use in commercial kitchens in schools are really flammable. And then fourthly, developing also other ways of making them more efficient. So there's some work going on there. It's going to take 10 years to do this. But at least I'm glad that you guys are looking at that. And in some ways, we hope the work continues, because it's a 10-year project. It may get cut off, but at the moment, we're good, and we hope to get something out.
Now, first off, knowing that we have someone in the audience who's passionate about refrigerants, I'm glad that someone was able to appreciate what may seem like a kind of niche program. But again, like you said, the more we've learned about, or I've personally learned about refrigerants, the more important I've realized they are. And so I'm glad that we have a program that we're working on, but clearly a lot is needed and more research as well. Claire, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to respond with.
Definitely awesome that you know about refrigerants and that you're passionate about it, and definitely something that there's a lot that you can change with refrigerants, and a lot of really exciting stuff I feel like coming up because people are realizing that this is a problem. So I'm really happy to hear that you're excited about it when you've got some work being done.
Hi, thank you guys all for being here. I'm curious, I know that in implementing larger scale kind of composting for multi-family households or kind of apartment buildings, struggles have been figuring out how to create composting streams that are not contaminated, or at least that's a struggle that Michigan has had on campuses. And so if you know of it, if you could speak to like some strategies that you've heard of as really helping to educate people on how to separate their waste and make that a more successful program, I think that would be useful for our efforts on campus for sure.
Thank you. Yes, and I want to say that we do work a lot with the Office of Campus Sustainability. So like we talk about these things because campus is sort of like a mini city as well. So a lot of the challenges are similar, and the tolerance for contamination in compost is next to zero. When you're collecting recycling, you also do not want it to be contaminated. It's also going to a facility where it will be sorted, so there's a little bit higher tolerance, whereas in the compost facility, that material is intended to be dumped and fed right into the pile. There's really no screen, there's no system, there's no manual sorting, so contamination can have a really outsized impact, and you can think like, oh, that's just not that much that material, but it can have pretty bad impact downstream in the finished product. So great question. The containers that I showed that the other communities are using, one of the features is that they all do have locked access. So to sign up to use the container, you would need to sign up, and then you would get some like information at that point about how, like what properly goes in the container, and then you would not be able to use it if you didn't have the code, right? So some of them have like they work different, a couple of different technologies. Some of them you might scan something on your phone. Some of them have like a manual keypad. There have been communities that have actually just, like when City of Minneapolis did this many years ago, before they had a curbside program, they put like a padlock on there, and you emailed the city and they said, use this container and here's the code. So, but there is a way to like kind of just restrict that, because you do run the risk of it turning into a trash can, and then that would really be, then that material would not be able to be composted.
Any other questions? Yeah, one in the back.
Hey, I volunteer with Common Cycle, which is a bicycle co-op, bicycle education organization in town. How do you see transportation or bicycles fitting into any of the programs that you all have talked about?
Yeah, within A2ZERO Office of Sustainability, we work closely with the Transportation Department for Strategy 4, which is to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So our Transportation Department is doing a lot of work. I wish I had someone here to speak about it. A lot of work in reducing vehicle miles traveled by having these other means of transportation available, and to be safe in doing it.
I might also take this as an opportunity to plug that an organization, or some of you might be familiar with Human Electric Hybrids in the community, and Walk Bike Washtenaw. They received one of our Sustaining Ann Arbor Together grants to purchase a few e-bikes, including some cargo bikes that are going to be available through a free renting library, essentially an opportunity for folks to try e-bikes out. Again, e-bikes are relatively expensive, and it can be a scary purchase if you haven't used one before. And we will be inviting some of that team out to our next forum. So if you're interested in learning more about the work that they're doing, again, we think that cargo bikes present a great opportunity for people to move themselves, but also things around our city. And so that's a nice connection point to next month's forum. And we hope that you might consider coming out to hear some of their story.
And during A2ZERO week, Human Electric Hybrids will be doing a cargo bike rally, which will be really exciting.
Yeah. And I'll just mention that with our MOA work, we have been working with Wolverines on Wheels, which is an on-campus bike group. And so we're hoping to be able to collect bikes at one of the donation events and work with them.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your questions. I think we are just about at time, so please give me a round of applause, or join me in a round of applause for our amazing panelists here tonight. Thank you so much. And now, as we close out, we always just like to share a few opportunities for all of you to stay engaged. This has already come up tonight, but we would definitely recommend following our newsletter. There's a lot of fantastic content and updates about our programs. Our most recent newsletter, this March edition, is an update to some information about home decarbonization. So definitely would recommend that. Again, on April 7th, to reiterate, curbside weekly composting pickup resumes, which we're very excited about. Now, April 19th, we'll be doing our free tree giveaway. All of the slots are currently filled for this, but it's possible that additional trees could become available if people cancel their reservations. So if you're interested in getting a free tree, you can keep an eye on the website for signups for that. And again, just always good to remember that registration for this happens in the middle of March, and it does fill up fast. So every spring, something to remember. Then on April 24th, we hope you come back for the next forum. That's that forum on the Sustaining Ann Arbor Together grants, where we'll have a number of community stories to share that we're really excited to bring forward. And then to reiterate again, we have the March electronics take back event filled up, but there's going to be one in June. So keep an eye out for the next electronics take back. And then A2ZERO week, a whole week of celebration and amazing events, including swaps and all kinds of fun stuff, and a cleanup that we're going to be doing. So lots of events coming up this season as the weather gets warm that we hope you'll join us for. Now, before we depart this evening, I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind taking out your phone, scanning this QR code. We have a 1 minute to 90-second survey that just helps us better understand how you heard about this event, what made you interested in coming out. These are things that help us better target places for doing outreach. So we appreciate you taking a moment to fill this survey out for us. And then again, the event is officially wrapped up at this point, but there may be a few minutes if you would like to ask any additional or final questions to our speakers as we kind of pack up a little bit. Thanks again for coming out.